Hi, I'm Steffany Strange. Want to hear something scary?
One night, Regina slept over at her cousin Tiff's while her aunt and uncle were on an overnight work trip. The girls made a blanket fort in Tiff's living room and stayed up late to tell each other spooky stories. Tiff's family had only recently moved into the house, but she was anxious to tell her cousin a story about her new home. Apparently, 10 years ago, the first owners of this house claimed their young daughter Ella had gone missing, began Tiff. They were in the living room, watching TV, when they heard their daughter's screams from the bathroom. There was scratching and whimpering coming from behind the door. The father shouted Ella's name, but there was no response. When the dad managed to kick down the bathroom door, they nearly fainted at what they saw. The floor and walls were covered in blood. Scratches covered the shower curtain, and in the bathtub, the water was stained with blood. But Ella was gone. The room was empty, door locked. But the window, the light of the full moon shone through the window that something had crashed through from the outside. The lack of evidence led the police around in circles, but the girl was never found. Sometime later, a neighbor went out to feed their dog and found another dog hogging the bowl. But it was a weird dog, hairless all over, long black hair on its head. It looked like a human girl, but it had a snout and jaw like a dog. Snarling, it turned and ran off on all fours. Other neighbors saw the dog girl too, and even recorded footage that made it onto the news. The police made a DNA match on a piece of hair it left behind. The dog girl was Ella. It turns out that after she'd somehow been transformed into this wild thing, she tried to go back home, but her parents couldn't handle her and tried to abandon her in the wild. When they were caught neglecting her, the dad committed suicide, and the mom was locked away for abandoning their child. What happened to Ella? Regina asked. They didn't know what to do with her either. She was half child, half dog, Tiff continued. They say she was taken into a lab or sanctuary, but before they could figure out what to do, she got loose. And people still see her wandering the streets to this day. A sudden growl and barking surrounded the tent, and Regina jumped out and onto the couch to see a video of a barking dog on the living room TV. Tiff rolled on the ground with laughter. Regina stormed out of the room and huffed that she was going to go brush her teeth. As Tiff was catching her breath, she suddenly heard scratching and tapping on the tile in the front hall. Regina, I thought you went to the bathroom. Tiff peered into the darkened hallway and saw a figure in the dark, sniffing around on all fours like a dog. The scratching intensified. Hey, Regina, sorry about the joke, but can you stop that? At the sound of her voice, Tiff watched as the figure froze, focused on her, and started to growl low in its throat, then began approaching her on its hands and feet. Regina, Tiff whimpered, feeling the cold draft blow in through the now open front door. As the shape stalked closer, Tiff realized it wasn't Regina at all. Out of the dark emerged a large, pale snout with snarling fangs and a head of long, tangled black hair. Its human-like eyes locked with Tiff's as the beast's shuddering jaw growled and dripped foam, steam panting off its breath. Its claws tapped and scratched on the tile. The claws were attached to limbs, resembling human hands and feet. It agilely crept closer. Ella? Regina would never forget the unearthly snarling, tearing, and screaming she heard from the hall as she came out of the bathroom, hands still wet from the sink. She had no way to explain to Tiff's parents or authorities the trail of blood and evidence of struggle that had been dragged through the front door. When Tiff's mangled remains were found, her death had been ruled as an animal attack. But deep down, Regina knew Ella had come home. Henjunaha and Lairohlamba desperately wanted to be together, but their families kept them apart, each believing the other wasn't good enough for their child. It wasn't until Lamta Tanja, the day the spirits are fed, that they finally formed a plan to run away together. Lamta Tanja is the first Saturday of the last month of the Mai Tai lunar calendar, where the locals would feed the Suru Unguru, or evil spirits. The whole community would be busy during this sacred activity, appeasing these evil spirits to keep them at bay. Every person had to give some sort of contribution to feed the spirits, or there would be fatal penalties. During it, the elderly women would then take the collected offerings to the crossroads. Henjunaha thought it would be the perfect time to go to Lairohlamba, so they could elope unnoticed. As the sun began to set that Saturday evening, the town hurriedly filled their baskets with offerings and headed for the eldest matriarch's house. While Henjunaha's parents were focused on their contribution, he snuck out with his pack. He had to cut through the woods to stay clear of everyone else. It made the trip to Lairohlamba's house longer than the regular route, but it would be safer to not be seen. As he neared the middle of the woods, he heard a shrill scream ringing from the crossroads. The high-pitched sound of terror could only mean one thing. Whatever the women had taken to the spirits was not enough. The Soroi Ungoroi were not satisfied, and someone would have to pay. He heard the town begin to panic, everyone running to their homes for safety. This had only happened once before, and several people in town had died, ripped apart by the angry spirits. And that's when he realized what had caused this perilous predicament. He had been so consumed with his mission of love, he had forgotten to donate anything to the spirits. He was the reason someone would die tonight. Henjunaha sprinted as fast as he could, no longer caring about being seen. He arrived at Lairohlamba's front steps, where she was anxiously waiting, holding a bag ready to leave. She had heard the commotion and knew the spirits were angry. Catching sight of her love, she smiled and started to go out to him. Henjunaha called out to her to stay where she was. A mist had rolled in, and the wind was rising. He saw something soaring towards him, like long black clouds, but with teeth. The entities surrounded him, then knocked him to the ground, so he was trapped. Henjunaha tried to crawl toward his love as she reached out to him. If he could make it across the threshold of her doorway, he would be spared. It was his only chance. She screamed for him to move faster, but the spirits continued attacking him, making it impossible to break out of their circle. Lairohlamba yelled to him again, petrified by what she was witnessing and not knowing how to help. He steeled himself to try and reach her. The stones below him turned slick with his blood as he lunged forward, placing a hand on her blessed doorway. She grabbed it as they both mustered the strength to get him across the threshold. Enraged, the spirits fell onto him, their teeth ripping ever deeper into his flesh. Spinning like a tornado around him, they began absorbing each other to unite into one large, monstrous being. Flying up to gain momentum, it then soared down just as she was pulling her severely wounded lover inside. The giant united entity pummeled him from above, flaying the skin from his back. He fell into the safe house, but it was too late. His exposed muscles and organs glistened and bled as he died, the pain and shock too much for his heart. Lairohlamba cradled his head, weeping, covered in her lover's blood. Distraught and heartbroken, she watched the triumphant spirits separate and fly away. The Soroi Ungoroi were done, for now, but there would be little time to mourn before their next feeding. Their weekly feedings happened each Saturday until the Hindi New Year. Or, as Lairohlamba began to think of them, the weekly chances she had to figure out some way to get retribution towards her love's ghostly murderers. Ronan was bummed to be spending summer with his mom, Mindy, and her new boyfriend, Dev. It was Dev's suggestion that they stay at his family's beach resort in Goa, India. He boasted that it was better than any overhyped tourist destination. A palace by the sea for free was all he had to say to get Ronan's mom to agree to the trip. Much to Ronan's dismay, Dev picked him up from the airport alone. "Your mom's on a tour of the city," Dev explained. Ronan sighed. His mom had only been dating Dev for a few weeks, and now he was stuck spending quality bonding time with a guy he barely knew. His mom, Mindy, was head over heels for Dev, and while Ronan was still trying to adjust, he didn't blame her. His dad was currently on his honeymoon with his new wife in Hawaii. But as soon as they stepped foot on the resort, Ronan wished he had somehow tagged along to Hawaii with his dad. The hotel didn't live up to the hype that was originally promised. It was run down, bare, and a bit plain. As Dev smiled and motioned toward the building, a snake tattoo on his arm caught Ronan's eye. As he stared at it, weirdly enough, it almost looked like it was staring back. Like the snake eyes seemed to follow him. Ronan rubbed his eyes and shrugged it off as jet lag. His flight out of New Jersey had been long and full of bad plane food. Once inside, Ronan also noticed the place seemed unsettlingly empty. Seeing the look of confusion on Ronan's face, Dev explained that the hotel was undergoing renovations, and it was technically closed to the public. Mindy and Ronan were accompanying him while he took care of the place during its off-season. Ronan rolled his eyes. "Hey, at least no one will hog the Wi-Fi," Dev offered. Before he could complain that the signal wasn't that great, Dev welcomed him with a tray of fresh seafood. It was as if it suddenly appeared. Ronan loved seafood, so he dug in, putting aside his grievances that he was stuck on Dev's work trip for the foreseeable future. "We're staying in the Royal Suite, room 1367. Don't get lost. I'm going to go check the grounds," Dev said, leaving Ronan a key. Sitting alone, Ronan felt as if someone was watching him. He heard some crying off in the distance toward the halls. Apprehensive, Ronan followed the noise he was certain sounded like a little girl.
"Beware the yaksha,"
he heard a voice as he made his way through the hall.
"He took my mommy. He'll take yours too."
He saw a little girl run into the double doors ahead, followed by a loud splash. When he got closer, the doors swung open, and he saw a small body floating in the motel swimming pool. It was covered in snake bites. He blinked, and the girl was gone. Spooked and wondering what a yaksha was, Ronan tried to look it up on his phone, but only half the page loaded. The yaksha, a spirit that devours travelers in abandoned places. Horrified, Ronan tried to call his mom, but there wasn't a signal. Was Dev a yaksha? It was getting late, so maybe she was already in the room. If he could get to her, he could urge her to leave. He had a feeling that Dev wasn't to be trusted. He put the key into the door and barged into the room. "Mom, we have to go. I think Dev isn't..." A sharp hiss hit his ears, and there he saw Dev. His snake tattoo glowed green, and Ronan found himself completely unable to move. As he stood dumbfounded and paralyzed, his eyes adjusted to witness Dev for what he truly was. Before him towered a menacing serpentine figure with massive fangs. Dev was the yaksha. Helplessly locked in the snake's green gaze, Ronan saw everything as he was slowly devoured whole. And then, darkness. Dev's phone rang as he bagged up the last of Ronan's belongings for disposal. He picked up the call from Ronan's mom as she asked him how Ronan was doing. Holding back a large burp, Dev replied, "I'm sorry, love. Ronan decided on Hawaii after all and switched flights. But look on the bright side. It's just us now."
Thanks so much for listening. Like and share if this video gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. See you next time.